Wild Wednesday on the Fan. We have your shot at tickets to Wild Mammoth next Tuesday. Just use the iHeartRadio app. Send us a talk back. Tell us who your 5 untouchable players are on the Wild currently. You can get full details on the contest, KFAN.com. Keyword contest, KFAN.com. Keyword contest.
Yeah, and if you win those tickets, you might get the chance to see the Wild's first regulation victory against the Mammoth. I believe it's just ridiculous how they can't solve that Utah
Go back
squad.
to Arizona as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, go back to AZ. Joining me now as we kick off the second hour in order to win for PA, John Krasinski of The Athletic. John Krasinski via X joining me now, covers the Minnesota Timberwolves for theathletic.com. How you doing, Johnny?
Doing great, Nordo. How's it going for you, man?
Really well, man. And it was a cool double feature last night. Wild throttling the Lightning, but prior to that, how about Anthony Edwards just saying, "I'm tired of this. I hate the Grizz. I don't know who in the heck is on the roster at this point. I'm just going to dump 41 on them and call it a W."
Yeah, it was something, entirely predictable as well. Like I was telling a couple of people, kind of in the back hallways of Target Center before the game started. I'm like, well, they're going to be either leading by a very small margin or trailing at halftime, and then they're going to put their foot on the gas and figure it out. And that's what this team does. It's not always the most satisfying way to watch a game, but when you see Ant kind of ascend to and turn the dial up to 11, like there's just no one more entertaining in the league to watch. And in the fourth quarter last night, I mean, he had that dial all the way up for much of that quarter and just kind of took the thing over and made sure they didn't lose. And so, stack another W here any way you can get it.
Yeah, indeed. And speaking of dialing up, how about dialing in? Chris Finch joined PA yesterday to kick off the show, and he kind of mentioned that he sees the team dialing in that focus. Do you see that a bit?
Well, I have seen a little bit more of it, I will say. I mean, certainly the win in Denver was encouraging, and, you're seeing Julius Randle start to show a little more activity and come around again. And I did ask Ant after the game last night, he said in his post-game interview with Leah B. Olson that, this is the most fun that he's ever had on the court. And I asked him why, and he said that he feels like things are coming together right now. Like this team is figuring things out. They're putting it all together. They're getting their ducks in a row. And there are certainly stretches of games where you see that. I'd like to see a little bit more consistency. I'd like to see, kind of more wire to wire dominance. If you really believe that this is a team that can go deep in the playoffs and even come out of the West, but they have played better, I would say, over the last 3 to 4 games than they had prior to that. And so little by little, there are signs that it's coming around. I think we still have to see a little bit more first, though.
I want to jump into this it's team related, certainly, but just kind of, I really enjoy reading what you put out on The Athletic, and I loved the story that you did about Bones Hyland. It was about a day and a half ago, and what stood out to you, and that's part of the cool thing. I love what you guys get in terms of the leeway to expand on stories, and maybe, I guess you can speak to it more, kind of the freedom to really dive deep on some of these. But what stood out to you in that piece you put together on Bones Hyland, just the perseverance, the man he's become, where he came from in Delaware, and just everything that he has really endured and really triumphed over en route to the NBA with a fat smile on his face.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the shout out there, Nordo. I do think that a quick advertisement for The Athletic is like nowadays, I think there is so much more emphasis put on kind of shorter stories, videos, and clips that people can digest quickly and get their information. And I get that. That's part of the media ecosystem that we live in and the involvement that fans want. But I do think that there's also still a place for longer form, more in-depth storytelling. And I think that's our specialty at The Athletic, certainly mine. And Bones Hyland just has an incredible story. When he was a very highly touted prospect in Wilmington, Delaware, in a hard kind of area of Wilmington, after his junior season, he lived with 12 of his relatives in a home, in a 2-story home, and he was in his upper floor bedroom when the house caught on fire. And He was trapped in his bedroom, had to climb out of his window and jump out of the second story window, and he fell down to the ground and tore the patellar tendon in his knee. It's a fire that also claimed the life of his grandmother and an 11-month-old cousin. So just an incredible tragedy that also really just did kind of threaten his basketball career, but he was able to rehab and get back on the court, become a first-round draft pick in Denver, had a really good early rookie season, then kind of maybe got a little bit too kind of high on his own supply and was really kind of trying to push for a bigger role and alienated himself from that group and ended up kind of getting traded to the Clippers, and 2 years go by and he doesn't really play a whole lot. And then Tim Connolly, the guy that drafted him in Denver, brings him to the Timberwolves on a two-way contract just to kind of keep him around the league. And he really kind of got a dose of humility through that and kind of looked at what he did wrong in Denver, used sort of the tragedy that he had overcome as fuel for kind of pushing him forward. And he's been a really big influence on this Timberwolves team now. He is a super positive guy. Guys really love being around. He brings an electricity to the court when he's in the game, and now he's a key part of their bench. And so it's just kind of one of those kind of rags to riches stories that I really enjoy telling, and Bones deserves all the credit for doing everything that it took to get him to this spot and learn lessons and stay tough and persevere. And now here he is, a part of a contending team and a big part of one as well.
Yeah, again, I encourage everyone to go and find John's story if you haven't already, theathletic.com, and take a read and learn about Bones and that incredible story that you mentioned, John. And with that, before we get back to the here and now, you know, you've been around this team and this league for a long time, and you've seen the enigmatic personalities, the big personalities, good, bad, and ugly of all of it in the NBA. One thing that does kind of impress me about Tim Connolly, it's about winning games, 2 straight Western Conference Finals appearances, but the player mix, the human element of it, I think this team's done a pretty good job culture-wise of finding those types of guys to bring into this team, and Bones is a great example of that.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the Memphis writers last night before the game, and just we were kind of talking about both of our teams and how what it's like covering the Wolves. And this is absolutely legitimate, Nordo. Like, it's a great locker room. There is not a jerk in there, and that's not a common thing in any professional sport, let alone the NBA. But it's a bunch of really good guys. They're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they are, Ant, Jaden, Naz, Rudy, Kyle, Dante, like all these guys, Bones, Julius, all of them are good-hearted dudes that sometimes they can be a little moody. Sometimes, you wonder, like, are they fully on board and fully locked into the game plans and things like that? But as people, they're generally, good to be around. I think they get along fairly well. They talk to each other. They treat people, with respect. And that makes it easier as a reporter to go into that locker room and get good answers and informative kind of feedback from the players and trying to, tell what's going right and what's going wrong. And there's not one guy that I go in there and I dread having to talk to and having to ask questions with. They're all like really engaging and that's very much appreciated. And I do think that's part of Tim Connolly's sort of evaluation process. He wants to have good guys in that locker room. He does not want to have jerks that kind of bring people down and really add a lot of pressure and toxicity to the environment. And some of the guys that maybe were in that category when he first came in, they're gone now. And I think that was a concerted effort on Tim's part to make that happen. And I think the good thing for him is it's paying off with wins on the court as well.
How about Slow-Mo back with it? What'd you think of Kyle rejoining the mix?
Yeah, I think it's really good, Nordo. I mean, it was funny last night. He didn't take a shot, was kind of a -5 in like 14 minutes. So he wasn't like incredibly impactful from a stat producing standpoint. But when you think about getting buyout guys, I know a lot of times around this time of year, when teams sign buyout guys, there's just this real celebration of, oh my gosh, the Thunder got this guy, or the Wolves got this guy, or the Celtics got this guy. And man, that's going to just make a huge difference in their championship odds. And most of the time that, is overstated. And the guy comes in and he might play a little bit here and there, and that's it. But I really do think that Kyle Anderson has a chance to be very helpful to this group. They need more ball handlers, and he can do that. They need more defensive versatility in the front court when Rudy Gobert is out, and he can do that. They need a guy in the locker room who is kind of a truth teller, who is a guy that people respect, who can kind of call people out when things aren't going well, and Kyle can do that. And so, I mean, I don't think he's going to be a 25-minute-a-night guy, but I do think that he gives Chris Finch a player that he trusts to put in different situations in a way that he feels more comfortable with than, say a younger player like Terrence Shannon Jr. And it would be great to get some of the rookies and second-year guys a little more run, but they're trying to win a championship right now. And so I think that the more trusted veteran guys that they have out there, I think the better it will be for what they want to accomplish in the immediate future here. And Kyle Anderson has been welcomed back with open arms. And so it's a pretty cool thing that he's back in the mix here.
Since you brought him up, tough year for Terrence, right? Terrence Shannon Jr. from an injury, and just even early on, you're thinking what he can do post Nickeil Alexander-Walker leaving, and steps in, and it's not clicking. He gets hurt. Now he's back, and he's in that DNP status. What's up with what is the path forward for him? And you mentioned this team's trying to win a title. And so maybe this season it's going to be some sparing usage down the stretch. But what is the path forward for him?
Yeah, I still think he has a possibility of a future, certainly with this team, Nordo. I mean, he is a big, strong kid that can get up and down the court. I think that one thing that we have seen so far this year, he had a ton of expectations coming into the season, had a really good summer, played really well in summer league. But I think one thing that he kind of found out as he made more of a name for himself is that when teams are scouting you, when teams are actually looking at what you do well and what you do poorly and how to attack you, it requires the player to make adjustments off of that. And I think that, early on and a lot of last season, Shannon came in and nobody knew what he brought to the table. And so he just used his speed and his power to kind of overwhelm teams sometimes. Well, now they know that he doesn't have much of a right hand. They know that there's a few other weaknesses that he has in his game. And so it's on him to sort of adjust to that and keep working and tailor his game to how opponents are playing him. And, he also, the injury is a big part of things here. The foot has not been good for most of the season, and that has limited his explosiveness, especially on defense, his ability to change direction. So whether or not he contributes a lot more this year, I think having another summer to work on his game, he's an incredibly hard worker. I think he still has a chance to be a rotation player, but it's just maybe not coming as quickly as people would have hoped.
That's John Krasinski, Johnny K, Johnny Athletic, theathletic.com. Follow him on X at JONKRAWCZYNSKI. Time for a few more here. Chris Finch joined yesterday with PA. I mentioned that. And along with talking about just what they're seeing moving forward, he did mention a little bit about the dynamic and the relationship between himself and Anthony Edwards. Now, you and anybody within 10 feet of the Timberwolves from a reporting standpoint, all of you have reported in depth about just, it looks loud, it looks ugly, it looks volatile, it looks contentious, but here's what it is behind the scenes. And Finch he talked about that and just competitive personalities, and they both want to win. They have an immense amount of respect and appreciation for each other. Is there any part of that that does lead potentially to, I mean, does it speak to, where am I going with this? Does it speak to the emotion and potential inconsistency of this team, however?
Yeah, I mean, like, I do think that they are two ultra competitive guys, two emotional guys, and very prideful guys. And so the way that those types of people communicate with each other, especially in high pressure moments, can sometimes be more volatile. It can sometimes be a little more in your face. And, you know, the sort of the banker out there, the mechanic out there, the journalist out there, a few other people out there who watch this and see it on TV or are in the arena and watch it, you look at it and say, man, that must be a terrible situation, because in my workplace that would never fly. And that would be kind of indicative of really big problems. But in this arena, it is sometimes how guys communicate. And the important part or subtext about that is the personalities of both of them are such that they can yell and be yelled at and then move on quickly. Yeah. Like there are people, there are certainly players and coaches, and there's other people that can be more sensitive to that. And so those interactions can linger and can fester and can really turn into big time problems. But with Ant and Finch, they have just shown time and again over the course of their relationship that they can have disagreements. They can have even forceful interactions, and then they move past it very, very quickly. They forget about it. They don't hold grudges. Okay. They usually, one will apologize to the other, or one will go and clear the air with the other, and then they move on. So I think that that's all so far been very healthy. We will see, though, Nordo, honestly, how this goes into the playoffs, because they will be entering these playoffs with more pressure on them than ever before. And how do both of those guys, the star and the coach, handle that? How does that trickle down to the rest of the team in times of adversity? We will see. But as of right now, I don't have a concern really that they're reaching some sort of breaking point, that there is some sort of schism, to use an old Vikings term around here. So I just think that they are two guys with a lot of juice, and when the lights are bright and the temperature's hot, they can bark at each other, but neither one of them takes it personally, and they just keep moving forward, and it's been very productive and successful for them to this point.
Last thing for you, just on a more simple note, with more games under the belt of Ayo Dosunmu, what do you see him impacting? Mm-hmm. What's different or potentially even better with Dosunmu in the mix?
Yeah, he's definitely, over the last couple of games, Nordo, looked more comfortable with where he fits on both ends of the floor. We were talking to him last night, and he said he's still trying to figure things out, and he's still a long ways away from where he wants to be, but certainly early on in the first few games after coming over in the trade, you could see that he was tentative, that he didn't exactly know how to play with his teammates on either side of the floor. And so then you were seeing some pretty ugly plus minus numbers. He was minus 33, I think, in one of the games, minus 25 in another. And so you're just like, ooh, what's kind of going on here? But in two in particular, he looks much more like the Ayo Dosunmu that you saw in Chicago. Decisive, getting downhill, getting to the basket, getting out in transition, being a little more disruptive defensively. And I think that's all about learning his teammates, learning the system a little bit more. He is a smart guy. He's really athletic. He is big and strong, and he's a great fit for them. I think it just is going to take time for everyone to just get familiar with each other. And every game that goes on, he looks more comfortable. It looks like he needs to, what they've focused on with him is to not defer as much. And it's very, kind of natural for a newcomer to try to come in and be polite, especially with bigger stars like Ant and Julius and those guys and more established players. I'm going to just defer to them. I'm going to get the ball to them and let them go to work. I don't want to step on toes, but they want Ayo to step on toes. They want him to be aggressive. They want him to look for his own shot. And the more aggressive and assertive he becomes, I think the more dangerous the team becomes as a whole. And I think we're getting closer to that point with him. He's starting to look really good.
I dig that, and I dig your work, and I appreciate you giving me time this morning, my friend. Have an awesome week, and we'll catch up again soon.
All right, thanks, Nordo. Talk to you soon, man.
Thank you. That's John Krasinski of The Athletic, theathletic.com, at John Krasinski via X. And because I practice this in the mirror each day before I go to work, it is at JONKRAWCZYNSKI. And it's been, as I mentioned with John, it's been reported on so deeply because it is jarring. And I like the way that Krasinski, that Johnny took it the way or the direction that he did in relation to, here's what it is now, here's what we know. And you have these massive personalities that can collide when things get hot. Now we need to see, of course, with more pressure on them, really than at any point during Finch's tenure here and in Anthony's career with 2 straight Western Conference Finals appearances, what this thing's going to look like moving forward when things get hot and the games count in a playoff series. It just kind of clicked in my head, and it's been a kind of, the inconsistency piece with this team. And I just think about that volatility word as it sits in moments where you're watching that take place from your coach and your star player. I just wonder how that trickle down effect is in terms of how it could potentially, the emotional nature of this game, lead maybe to some of the inconsistencies in certain aspects and on certain nights as part of that with Finchie and Ant. But for now, it's working. They've won 4 straight, and it's got to be third spot or bust. It's still, I think it's one more win, one more loss, maybe than the Houston Rockets. Houston won, I think, last night. So you're still chasing that third again. I think it's Spurs and OKC in the top 2, and that's already been decided with so few games remaining. But an opportunity to jump into the 3 spot, the way they match up, I think they actually, Wemby and all things included, if there was a postseason series, I like how the Wolves match up against those Spurs. But there's still time. I mean, as muddy as the West is, that's the frustrating thing. The bottom's kind of fallen out on the Western Conference, but you're still 6 deep in terms of trying to figure out what is this team, what can they be, how far can they go, and we're just so close to the postseason. I want to start breaking down those probable matchups, but everything's so freaking subject to change on a night-by-night basis. But thanks as always, John Krasinski, and again, I'm not getting paid by The Athletic here. Read that piece on Bones. It's an awesome piece of work that Johnny did. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to pause, and when we return, next segment, head coach of the Minnesota Wild, John Hynes. I'm expected to chat with John after the 5-1 win. A couple days to chill before they head to Vegas and face the Golden Knights on Friday night. Back to Wild hockey before we hear from the TV Vox, Anthony LaPanta at 11. That's the TimberTech set list redo. And we're going to join the head coach when we return next here on The Fan.
It's spun loose. Faber to open ice. It's Kaprizov at the red line. A backhanded shot. He scores! Move over Marion! The new franchise leader in career goals is Kirill Kaprizov. It's into the empty net for number 220. And the Wild in front 5-1 late in the third.
That was indeed. We heard it from Alex Stalock. Terrific call by Joe O'Donnell there. Part of the 5-1 victory last night. Wild beating the Tampa Bay Lightning at Grand Casino Arena. A little record-setting moment there. And, let's talk to the guy that was front row center for that. John Hynes, head coach of the Minnesota Wild, joining 9 to noon. How are you doing, John?
I'm great, Nordo. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, and always appreciate your time. Congratulations on the victory, and certainly a fun moment for Kirill Kaprizov last night with his notching his 220th goal in a Wild sweater and setting a new franchise record.
Yeah, thanks. It was it was obviously a good win. I thought the guys really played well, and I think we gathered ourselves after the last couple of games against St. Louis and Utah. So it was nice to see the style of game that we played, and the guys get back to what the game that gives us the best chance to win night in and night out. And as far as Kirill goes, it's a tremendous accomplishment, obviously, to pass Gaborik for the all-time goals and, in really such a short amount of time in his young NHL career. And he's a pleasure to coach. He's a pleasure to watch, and was just really happy for him that he had some looks earlier in the game. He wound up with the empty netter, but he had about 2 empty netters that he could have had earlier too. So I'm happy for him. It's a great accomplishment.
It is indeed, and he did have a few chances. I almost imagine in the dressing room after the game, they're like, "Hey, congratulations on the record," but I mean, it was just an empty netter. I mean, it's almost like they had to give it to you. You couldn't buy one earlier in the game. He had some great chances last night, John.
Yeah, he certainly deserved it, though. I think when you look at, I've been very impressed with him even since he's come out of the break. He looks, just laser focused. He's got great jump to his game. He's highly competitive. So that's a really good sign for Kirill, but also our team that he's come back from the break and he's dialed in.
Yeah, and you mentioned the team gathering yourselves after a couple losses in a row there. I know Kucherov does get through in the second period last night. But what was really working for you guys in limiting dangerous chances overall for him and the visitors?
I think we did I felt like when we come back from the break, the Colorado game was pretty good. It was a highly competitive game. The Utah game just wasn't indicative of how we want to play, whether that's from a competitive standpoint, structurally, whatever it is. Some days you're going to have some nights like that over the course of 82 games. I thought the St. Louis game, we were okay. I think we had a chance to win the game, but it wasn't really the identity we wanted to play with. So we got back to, I think, much more. We played a faster game. We moved pucks north. I thought our checking structure up the ice, in the offensive zone, in the neutral zone, we were much more on our toes, and we didn't give easy ice and easy looks. We made them earn. If they were going to get chances, they had to earn them, and that was the focal point going into the game, and the guys did a heck of a job executing.
I mentioned this earlier in the show, chatting hockey with Alex Stalock. He was doing analysis on the radio broadcast last night, and just kind of thinking about Brock Faber, John. I do typically think of him defense first in terms of Brock's game and what he brings to this team at a super high level. But then I watch that goal last night, and you're like, wait a minute, hold on. He's got 14 this year. You just the evolution of his game, maybe it's playing with Hughes, but in his own right, the ability to evolve and get better. Brock Faber continues to amaze me night after night.
Yeah, I think when Fabes first came in, I think that was kind of his, a little bit of what his shtick was when he was, coming up through college and things like that. He was a great skating, hard to play against, kind of, I don't want to say defense first, but more of a defensive defenseman. But I think when you look at his skating ability, he does have good puck skills. He's an elite competitor. And, what I found with him just coaching was he's always looking for ways to get better. And then he turns pro and, based on opportunity and some things that happened with our team, he got some opportunities on the power play, which was new to him. And then I think he found some footing there, and he just continues to evolve his game. Even last year at our exit meeting last year, he's like, hey, what do you think I need to get better at? What do I need to work on? And, in the summertime, you can't work on necessarily defense, but you can work on your body and conditioning, but also your puck skills. And he's a highly talented player that's always looking to improve. So it's nice to see his game evolving on both sides of the puck.
What do you look for, John, as the head coach, when you see a guy like Robbie Fabry getting his first shifts with the team as he did last night? What are you looking for when someone debuts and just kind of trying to work his way into the system?
Really exactly what Robbie did last night. I thought he came out, he played with energy. He was competitive. He had a couple hits early. I think he had a couple scoring chances. So, it was nice to see him come in and kind of show us a little bit of what he can bring on this team. And it's a small sample size, but I think, being picked up on waivers and coming in, meeting a new team and playing the way they played last night, it certainly was encouraging for us to see that. And I think he felt good about his game as well. And now we want to continue to build on that.
Similarly, but different, you hadn't seen Jonas Brodin on the ice for a while. And, as an outsider, it just felt, I'm just kind of like, okay, when are we going to get to see Jonas again? We get the Olympic pause and all of that. He comes back. I thought he looked pretty good, Coach. What did you see?
I would agree with you. I think he looked really good. I mean, his conditioning looked good. Skating was on point. I thought he moved the puck well. He's always a difficult player against, from a defensive standpoint, but I like the speed, conditioning, puck movement. Those things were were on par last night for him. So it was great to have him back in the lineup.
No, absolutely. And I saw the announcement yesterday. Michael McCarron is joining the squad in a move with the Predators. You coached McCarron in Nashville, if I'm correct on that. What do we know about Michael McCarron, and how excited are we to see him come to St. Paul?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, he's a great he's a great kid. He's got a lot of character. He's he's got a wife and some kids. He's going to come in. So I think when you add a player into your team, it's not just the player, it's the person and the people that he brings with him. He's got a great family, great background. So the person entering our team and locker room and organization is what you want. And then, from a hockey standpoint, he's a big, strong player. He can play center and wing, right shot, very good face-off guy. He helps on the penalty kill, brings some physicality. I think he's a multi-dimensional player, and, I think he's going to he brings some energy on and off the ice, into your team. So we're excited to have him. I think that he's going to fit in well with our group and how we want to play. But, I think when you put the team together and looking towards, the end of the season here and into the playoffs, is you have to have guys that I think can fill roles. And there's little things that make a huge difference in games and in a playoff series. As we all know, face-offs is important, physicality is important, penalty killing is important. Having lines and identity lines are really important. So, I think he's going to add some strong elements to our group.
Yeah, strong elements for sure. 6'6", 230 pounds is what he was listed at. And watch out. Anytime you join me, John, and I always appreciate it, I always have the dumbest question you're going to get all day, and here it is. Michael McCarron, 6'6", 230. When you're that big, and I remember watching the Olympics, Tage Thompson, he's 6'6", just a giant out there, right? Mm-hmm. What are traits when you're a player that size? What is the challenge in terms of trying to keep up with those 5'10", 5'11" speedsters when you're 6'6" and 230 like Mr. McCarron is?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a couple things. One is those big guys, if they're in good shape and they got some power to them, the younger guys could be quicker, but the big guys, they have a lot of reach. They can take up a lot of space if they're willing skaters like Tage is and like Michael are. That because I think their size and reach, both of those players are big players, but they're both pretty smart. So I think the anticipation skills help as well. And then the other thing too is there's also advantages to being that big. Like I said, you have a long wingspan, long reach, good stick detail, heavy on the puck. You can carry a lot of ground. When there needs to be physicality, you're usually on the top side of that. So I think it's like every player, whether you're small or whether you're big, it's do you use your assets to a high level? And we feel with a guy like McCarron, some of the things that he brings to our team, the intangible things and the details of the game, are important and are going to make us better.
That's John Hynes, head coach of the Minnesota Wild. Last thing for you, simply enough, it's Friday night in Vegas. Just kind of a whirlwind coming back from the pause with the back-to-back. Not a lot of time to just take a breath. You kind of get an extra day here before you go to Vegas. Would you consider that to be a much-needed breath or just a good opportunity to kind of reset things with a great schedule in front of you?
Yeah, I think so. We came back from we had a really good run prior to the break, and then everyone's going their different ways, and some guys at the Olympics, some guys are off. Then when we come back, we had so many guys at the Olympics that were practicing with a small group, and then we come right back and go on the road and played a good game, played a bad game, played an average game. We had a day off. So we had a really productive morning yesterday, just resetting our minds and what we need to do. I thought we played a really good game last night. Guys get a breather again today. And, I'm excited. We get a good practice tomorrow before we leave. And then we got two big games, right? We got Vegas and Colorado on the weekend and a practice to start it off tomorrow. So I think it's a good reset and just keep moving forward and getting better and building our team game and building our individual game here down the stretch.
That's awesome, man. Thanks as always again for joining us 9 to noon. Have a terrific weekend with Vegas and Colorado on the horizon. And hope we get the chance to chat next week.
All right. Thanks, Noro. Take care, man. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. That's John Hynes, head coach of the Minnesota Wild. They do get to take a breath today. And again, next up, a Friday night affair, hitting that text line for Fallness and Alex Staylock, and hopefully getting 2 points out in Vegas with those Golden Knights. Some news around the corner. I do want to kind of hijack a bit of it, jump back. I'm sure Brett's got some Vikings bits in his news bag. But then Anthony LaPanta, your TV voice of the Minnesota Wild, will be in studio at 11. It's the Fan. Hey, Brett.
Hey, what?
The hockey tournament's on 45 TV, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
And you can also hear coverage of it starting tomorrow on KFAN Plus 96.7 and also right here on the Fan.
Zach Halverson on the call.
That's correct.
Yeah, the reason
Fallness mixed in.
The reason I'm asking is I get it, it's high school hockey, so maybe they don't put together like an hour-long pregame or something, but I've had this thing, it's like the Kelly Clarkson show. We had like Pink and Nev Campbell on there a bit ago while I was talking to Hynes. And now I think that's Kelly. I don't know. I haven't seen Kelly Clarkson in years, but I just feel like I'm being like there's a ruse. Like I just need this to become hockey. And I guess I got to wait 9 more minutes, but yeah, I just maybe next year we do a pregame. I don't know. But anyway, Kelly Clarkson show on my TV here in the studio. News to Nords brought to you by The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com. Feeling the felt all year long, live racing in play in the spring, and tons of shows, tons of things bring the whole family. That's what you do. Just drive down to my favorite spot in Shakopee, bring the whole family to Canterbury, and you'll have a blast. Where are we headed to first, Brett?
Number 1.
We'll head to New Winter Park out in Eagan. A couple of cap-related bits for your Minnesota Vikings. First off, on the potential quarterback, he's one of 2 as of now. I mean, maybe you throw in...
Well, there's all kinds of options.
There's all options. There's Kirk O'Change, or it could be Tua.
I think it's going to be... I think as of today, it's going to be Kyler or Geno Smith. And 64686, I mean, the text line, yeah, no, that's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting here at a super high level. Why would we bring in Kyler? Does that mean, is Ryan Wright likely to be out with Kyler? I don't like the Vikes. I don't think the Vikes have the cap room to carry 2 punters. That's Nate. Yeah, I get it. Kirk Cousins, hands down the best option. That's Steve from Medina. Robert, I can't believe we're discussing Geno Smith, Kyler Murray. The Vikings need to consider another route that starts with a B, as in bottoming out. Oof. Putting Grenard on the trading block is the correct call. That's what Robert thinks. All right, I get it. I know it sounds weird. I will say this. I got a text message. Why are we considering Geno Smith? Seattle dumped him to sign Sam Darnold. So we take their garbage. Actually, they moved on from Geno Smith because he wanted $40 million a year. The Seahawks were going to re-sign him. They were efforting a new contract. He wanted too much money. So then they did move on. Absolutely. And then he was hideous in Las Vegas. I get it. This isn't necessarily what I wanted to happen. I wanted number 9, our 10th overall pick, to be a star and a budding superstar, and it's not happening. So yes, we're talking about Kyler and Geno Smith. Killing the messenger. Nordo has lost his ever-loving mind. That's Stephen KC. Hey, why don't we see if Ponder wants to make a comeback? So now, yes, I'm getting it. I get it. I'm with you. I'm just a Vikings-loving rube. This is all very weird. I just want the team to be good again. Where are we headed next?
So according to CBS Sports' Jonathan Jones, Kyler will most likely sign for a vet minimum. That's $1.3 million when he becomes a free agent. That would help with the cap situation, where you're having to gut a lot of people, including Hargrave, Aaron Jones.
Maybe that's true. I don't know. I don't buy it. He's going to be released on Wednesday when the league year starts. And if he's signing for the league minimum, you will have probably 3 or 4 different suitors. There's got to be a handful of teams that would say, Kyler, that talent, injury issues and all of that, but $1.3 million, sign me up. So I still think, you're probably seeing $7, $8, $9, $10 million for a 1-year deal. I don't know. I could be I could have lost my ever-loving mind per Steve and KC. I just don't. It's not going to be a ton of cash, but I think it'll be more than the vet minimum. We'll see.
But on that note, Grenard is going to be one of those casualties, most likely. It looks like they're willing to move him one way or the other. Your thoughts?
Well, there's not enough time because I want to get to Anthony LaPanta here. But it does bear in mind, and PA is going to be back, by the way, the host of 9 to noon, returning tomorrow. And I'm certain of this, that we'll discuss this more. And a text that I sent him yesterday is, you think Dallas Turner's ready? Like, do you think Dallas Turner is ready? And the reason I bring that up is if you trade Grenard, and I've heard all kinds of ideas that have kind of spawned from that. Day 2 pick, XYZ potential player, who knows where that goes? Or are you packaging to move up in the draft? There are certainly options that the Vikings would have. But per Schefter, the Vikings would like to keep Grenard, but they also have salary cap issues. Okay, so we know that. Grenard wants a raise. He wants a little market correction on what he's doing for the Purple. I still think they figure out a way to keep him. And with Dallas Turner, I'm really split on it. Certainly better in 2025. The idea that simply because he was a first-round pick and it's year 3, that we have to start him, that makes zero sense to me. Either he's worthy of a starting spot or he's not. He was splashier in 2025. That came with the reps and the opportunity. 700 snaps and change versus 300 his rookie year. So he was on the field more. He made some plays. Part of that sack number, coverage sacks. I still don't think he's twitchy or fast enough or savvy enough to consistently beat tackles off the line. That's just one man's opinion. But again, he was much better in year 2. I'm not writing off Dallas Turner. And I hate how these conversations have to be. It's either Grenard starts because Turner is awful or Turner has to start because he's amazing. The truth's lying in the middle from my standpoint here. And I'm not against him getting the opportunity. The thing that I would be against, though, is if you're rolling into 2026 or rolling into the draft and it's Turner and Andrew Van Ginkel as your bookending pass rushers. The thing for me, and I'm not in charge of the money, I'm not in charge of making decisions and making moves. The thing that would make more sense to me is you find a way to get Grenard happy and whatever that market correction in money looks like. And maybe you move Andrew Van Ginkel. If you were going to move somebody, he missed 5 games last year. He's got the neck thing. And I love Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel style. But it's the last year of his deal coming up. He's older, about to turn 31. He did miss that time. Now, Grenard missed time last year with the shoulder, too. So I get all of that. But I'm not sold on Turner being the answer and the true one-for-one replacement there. But he still has a right to grow. Still very young and all of that. 25 was a significant growth in comparison to his rookie season. He did make plays. He was splashy at times. I don't want to lose Jonathan Grenard. And I don't think the team wants to lose him either. So right now, if I had to bet, I would bet on the team finding a way to make it work with Grenard so that he stays here. Again, one man's opinion. But that's where we're at on that. Oh, Mr. LaPanthus here. Wild throttled the Lightning last night.
Yes.
Wolves handled Grizzlies.
Yes.
Thanks to 41 from Ant. And that's about News to Nord, right?
Yeah, that's about it.
Party on. Thank you, Brett. Brett Blakemore leading News to Nord, brought to you by The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com. A hockey-heavy presentation will continue to be such. I got, eventually, once the Kelly Clarkson show finally ends, I'm going to get to watch some high school hockey, and I'm going to get to chat hockey with Anthony LaPanta. Final hour ahead, 9 to noon.